Our next speaker for the night is going to be Nouran Shehata. She's actually a senior in the Rutgers School of Business, majoring in finance. She loves to take long walks on the beach and disrupting the universe with her questions. Investigating a culture of innovation wherever she goes, that's what she lives for. That and, of course, watching cute cat videos. And I present to you Nouran's speech, Be Loud.
Weeks ago, I received a great text message from one of my really good friends. The text message read, "LOL, Noura, just saw you at the train station. Totally remembered to save your number just now. Saved you as Noura-loud, haha." Now, a couple of years ago, if I were to have received that text message, I would have been very offended. I would have been very upset. Because a couple of years ago, I started my Rutgers journey. And at that moment in time, I also began to receive a lot of comments and a lot of feedback on my loudness. Friends would come up to me and they would say, "Oh my God, Noura, I totally just found you because we could hear you before we even see you." People I would pitch my ideas to about different initiatives I wanted to start would look at me and say, "You know, Noura, that's a really big idea. You might want to tone it down a little bit and, downsize." Even people in my community, when I would talk to them, they would look at me and they would say, "Noura, how are you going to get married if you are so loud? No appropriate girl is loud like you. Don't you want to be like Rabiha? Rabiha's successful. She married. Don't you want to be like Rabiha?" And freshman me kind of thought, "I do want to be like Rabiha. Rabiha seems to have it going. She has everything in place, right?" So then freshman me realized that there was this mold, this recipe for achieving success. And if that mold were to have a banner, like a disclaimer at the top, it would have probably read something like this: "Be yourself, but not really. Be the person that you should and are expected to be if you want to win the game of life." And oh, how I really wanted to win the game of life, man. I really wanted to win that game. So I signed up. I was like, you know what? I'm going to fit that mold. I'm going to discard loud Noura. So then began the first phase of my metamorphosis. I had changed to fit into this mold, and fast forward 3 months later, I had completed my, the fall semester that I had said I was going to make this change, and it was a complete disaster. I had lost my energy, my optimism wasn't what it used to be, and I distinctly remember my schoolwork wasn't really up to par. It was pretty terrible. And most importantly, I was extremely upset. I wasn't very happy with who I had become. And it pained me because I was like, this is a recipe that is supposed to lead me to success. I'm following this mold. I'm following the steps. Why aren't I succeeding? And then I realized that by diminishing something that was so central to who I was as a person, that characteristic, my loudness, was a parental descriptor of who I was, and all my other characteristics stemmed from my being loud. So by diminishing that loudness, by putting it aside, I diminished my optimism, I diminished my energy, my enthusiasm. It all went away. So then began phase 2 of my metamorphosis. I decided this time I wasn't going to fit the mold. This time I was going to change the mold. And now, if you've ever tried to change something that you yourself haven't created, you understand that the first step into doing so is understanding the problem first. So the first question that I had was, what's the big deal with being loud? Like, what does that even really mean? What does that entail? So I did what any college student would do when they don't know the answer to a question. I Googled it. And the first thing that came up was this definition. An entity that is capable or produces much noise. So, what do you think of that? Now, let's translate that definition into that for a person, right? When we think about this definition in the context of people, producing much noise, that kind of sounds like somebody who knows how to shake things up. You know, making some noise, shaking things up. That sounds like the life of the party, somebody who I kind of want to be. So, I took that definition, and I began to think of greatness and the leader that I want to be. The world-class Rutgers leader that I aspired to become, and I had realized that at that point, all the greats that came before us did that same exact thing. They made some noise and they shook things up. When you think of Steve Jobs, he invented something that was not only a phone, but it was an MP3 player and a computer. At that time, he was doing something very special. He was being loud. When Rosa Parks decided to sit where she wanted to sit, rather than where she was supposed to sit, she was being loud. When I decided to create a media initiative to help defy the stereotypes that revolve around minority women, I was doing something very similar. I was being loud. So now being loud doesn't seem so bad, right? Pretty all right. And what I ask from you today is, instead of shushing the person that you suspect is being loud, join them. Because being loud transcends vocality. Being loud is about being bold. Being loud is about being original. Being loud is about utilizing your perspectives to change that mold and recipe to cater to your success. So I ask you all, as you're embarking on your journey to a metamorphosis, do that, and while you do it, I challenge you all to be loud.
Alright guys, so our next speaker is going to be Mino Paul. Mino, whose name, by the way, actually means